the past month, Democratic leaders have joined our Where Trump Leads, Glenn Follows tour to highlight the GOP's extreme record. Today, here in Charlottesville, this is our last stop before the Democratic primary on Tuesday. We've got some fantastic Democrats with us today, real leaders here to discuss what's at stake in Virginia's elections this year and the dangers of Youngkin's far-right agenda. Senator Creed Eads, Delegate Sally Hudson, and co-chair of the Charlottesville Democratic Party and education advocate Becca Saxon. As we emerge from this global pandemic, it is Democratic leadership that is putting shots in arms and charting a path, a real strong path to a post-COVID recovery. Over 2/3 of Virginian adults have received a vaccine, and the latest jobs report shows us on a path towards a strong recovery. But we still got a lot of work to do. The progress we've made so far is a testament to Democratic leadership. But it's also a reminder that we cannot allow Glenn Youngkin and the Virginia GOP to drag us backwards. In Glenn Youngkin, Virginia Republicans have nominated a Trump loyalist who has not only embraced the former president, but all the worst elements of his agenda as well. Meanwhile, Virginians are seeing the benefits of the American Rescue Plan all across the Commonwealth, from direct checks to helping them make rents to loans to small businesses and a sped-up vaccine rollout. And just as a reminder, not one Republican in Congress has supported the American Rescue Plan. And Glenn Youngkin also opposed the American Rescue Plan, calling it wrong and unnecessary. Glenn Youngkin would rather play politics than support a bill that helps Virginians make rent, afford health care, and pay their bills. Youngkin has taken an extremely hard tack on health care, railing against Governor Northam's efforts to preserve and protect the Affordable Care Plan and attacking Medicaid expansion as a sad thing. He said Medicaid expansion is a sad thing. Glenn Youngkin is a pro-Trump Republican who has echoed the former president's most dangerous conspiracy theories. To date, his only concrete policy plan is his so-called election integrity effort. And Youngkin has attracted support from dangerous far-right figures in the Republican Party like Corey Stewart and Amanda Chase. He spent the last month dodging basic questions about his record and hiding from Virginia voters. But we know exactly where he stands. He's refused to say where he would separate himself from Donald Trump. And when it comes to key issues like reproductive rights and gun safety, Youngkin has staked out extreme positions, opposing the progress Democrats have made here in Virginia. Today, we'll hear from Virginia leaders about the importance of standing up to Trump and Youngkin. Let me be clear, if we want to keep moving Virginia forward and continue making progress, we have to elect Democrats in November to fight the GOP's extremism. Now it's my honor to introduce to you State Senator Creed Eads.
Thanks, Susan. The stakes in this year's election could not be higher. I guess you get used to politicians saying every year that the election this year is more important than any one we've ever had before, but the stakes are incredibly high. Affordable health care for hundreds of thousands of Virginians, legislation to protect Virginians' civil rights, worker protection that keeps frontline workers safe, and so much more is all at risk if Republicans win. Democrats in the General Assembly have delivered on their promise while in the majority, on their many promises. To help Virginians weather COVID-19, we passed legislation to provide paid sick time for essential workers, to keep Virginians in their homes during the pandemic, to make sure workplaces were following rules to allow or to keep workers safe, and much, much more. We delivered on our promise to fight gun violence after Republicans shut down the 2019 special session in the wake of the Virginia Beach mass shooting. We delivered landmark civil rights legislation, including the South's first comprehensive LGBTQ non-discrimination bill, and we protected and expanded the right to vote, making Virginia one of the easiest states in the country to vote in. As the chair of the Privileges and Elections Committee, I know how important these measures are. Early voting, Sunday voting, no excuse absentee voting, making Election Day a state holiday, prepaid postage for mail-in ballots, and much more. These measures will not only make 2021 the easiest election to participate in, they'll strengthen our democracy. The stakes of the election this year are clear. We can continue making progress, continue helping Virginians recover from this pandemic, continue expanding health care, and protecting Virginians' fundamental rights, or we can slide backwards with Donald Trump's hand-picked candidate for the governor's office. Democrats have made tremendous progress, but Glenn Youngkin, who has the full backing of former President Trump, Corey Stewart, Amanda Chase, and other extremists, has made clear he would take us backwards. He doesn't even have a voting record or an issues webpage or on his website, but we know exactly where he stands on the issues that Virginians, that my constituents care most about. Youngkin has called Medicaid expansion a sad thing. While 550,000 Virginians have access to affordable health care because of Medicaid expansion, he stands opposed to it. He centered his campaign around a phony election integrity plan that would make it harder for Virginians to vote. At a time when Republican governors in other states are signing draconian voter suppression laws, we can't afford to do the same in Virginia. And Youngkin has called the American Rescue Plan unnecessary. While millions of Virginians got direct checks, parents are getting an increase in the child tax credit, small businesses got grants to keep the lights on, and Virginia schools are set to get a $2 billion funding increase. Youngkin opposed the bill. We've come too far to allow Donald Trump's hand-picked candidate anywhere near the governor's office. Virginia's next governor must be someone who will protect and build on the progress we have made in the Commonwealth. We need a governor who will stand and expand health care and build a post-COVID economy. And Glenn Youngkin has already told Virginians he will not be that governor. Now I have the distinct honor and high privilege to turn the podium over to my colleague and friend, Delegate Sally Hudson.
Thank you, Senator Deeds and Chair Swecker have been wise, so I'll be brief. I think that Democrats have an awful lot to be proud of our work in the General Assembly, but above all, the work that I'm most proud of is our work to protect and strengthen our democracy. Senator Deeds, as the chair of the Senate Privileges and Elections Committee, deserves so much credit for spearheading that work, but I think we here in this community in Charlottesville understand why it's so essential. Across the country, we have seen chaos in other states in trying to settle the 2020 election, but not here in Virginia. And that's because of all the work that we've done in Richmond to protect our elections and to expand access to the ballot box. And we have to have a governor in the next 4 years who will continue that work, because we understand right here in Charlottesville just how dangerous it is to flirt with the big lie that Donald Trump has perpetuated all across the country. We know that undermining elections foments violence. We know that 5 Americans died in the violent insurrection on the Capitol on January 6th because they had been led to believe that the election was not fair and just. And we know that the very same people who showed up at that violent insurrection found their roots at the Unite the Right rally right here in Charlottesville. Anyone who was in those crowds that day knows that so many of the people who had assembled thought that they were acting on orders carried right from the president, that they saw in President Trump a leader who was something to aspire to. And so our next governor here in Virginia has to reject that entire mindset. We know that we can't allow anyone to perpetuate that lie, and we have to be absolutely clear that if you don't respect elections, you don't deserve to serve. And that is the kind of governor that Glenn Youngkin would be. We need somebody who can stand up and answer the very simple question, who's president and was the election conducted well? That's President Joe Biden. It's something that would be very easy for any of the Democrats here running, and so I look forward to supporting all of our nominees after the primary on June 8th. Because of all the good work that we've done to expand the ballot, access to the ballot, it's easier than ever to vote in Virginia. Saturday is the last day of early voting. Tuesday is the election at your usual polling place. I hope that everyone in our community will turn out and make your voices heard, and that we will continue on to November to support a strong Democratic ticket. And then it is my distinct honor to introduce Becca Saxon, who chairs our local Democratic Party and is such a strong advocate for our schools and our students.
Good morning. My name is Becca Saxon, and I'm the co-chair of the Charlottesville Democratic Party. I am also the mother of a Charlottesville high school student. High-quality, safe public schools are one of the most important issues for me, and like any parent, I do a lot of research about decisions that will affect my son. All the Democratic candidates have plans to support public education. They want to raise teacher salaries to recruit and retain a diverse workforce. They want to invest in education infrastructure to ensure that our schools are safe and have the indoor air quality our students need. They want to make sure that our children are learning the skills and knowledge they need to be successful. They want all students from every part of the state and from all racial backgrounds to have access to equitable education so that they can learn and thrive. The last year has shown how far we need to go to achieve educational equity. From internet infrastructure to investments in buildings to hiring more educators, COVID laid bare the results of the state's chronic underfunding of our schools during the years the GOP had the majority in the General Assembly. Democrats have responded to these challenges with action. They raised pay in this year's budget. They allocated more than $100 million for rural broadband expansion. And at the national level, Joe Biden and Democrats in Congress pressed the American Rescue Plan, which will allocate $2 billion to Virginia's public schools. But Glenn Youngkin and Republicans stand opposed to these efforts. Youngkin called the American Rescue Plan unnecessary, and his plans for Virginia schools would take our Commonwealth backwards. Glenn Youngkin has spoken out against investing in our education infrastructure. He has spoken out against plans to bring our curriculum into the 21st century. And he has opposed measures aimed at stopping LGBTQ discrimination in our schools. Youngkin has even gone on the record to oppose the very foundation of public education, railing against what he calls mandated equal education and threatening public school funding by pushing for charter schools. Our families and our children deserve better than Glenn Youngkin. They deserve high-quality public schools where students' needs are met so that their dreams can be achieved. They deserve buildings that are safe and modern. They deserve access to technology and the internet, regardless of whether they live in downtown Charlottesville or in rural Madison County. They deserve elected officials that will govern and lead to make daily life better for all. With Glenn Youngkin running an extreme campaign, it's clear that the health of our public schools is on the ballot in November. Democrats have laid out clear plans to invest in our schools, students, and teachers. To date, Glenn Youngkin doesn't even have an issues page on his website. When it comes to our children's future, the choice is clear. We can't afford Youngkin's far-right agenda to undermine our schools. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Susan Specker.
Thanks,
Thank
Becca.
you.
Well, that concludes our press conference, and I want to thank everybody for coming out on this sunny day. A little humid, but it's nice to see the sun, and I guess we'll see you later on the campaign trail.